Hello, my name is John Biltcliffe and I'm an industry specialist solution architect at AWS. And in this video, I'm going to talk about our demonstration of near live news distribution using TAMS. For those of you not familiar with TAMS, I would suggest you go and watch our video first on fast turnaround workflows using TAMS, as that will introduce the TAMS open source TAMS API specification and talk about what it is and how it can be used in workflows. This video is going to focus straight in on the news distribution use case. So this demonstration has been done in collaboration with Reuters news agency, who came to us and asking the questions about how TAMS API could be used to replicate content between news contributors and their customers, such as news broadcasters. Today, most of the distribution is done through fixed fibre lines and satellite feeds, where all content is made available to all customers and recorded all the time in case it's needed, kind of almost fear of missing out. And what this demonstration does is kind of rethink some of that paradigm. So while there is still a need for live, that can be focused in on just a few use cases where absolute live is needed to be taken to air. If the need is just for the content for recording for subsequent edit, or not even realise it's needed at that time, then the TAMS store can come into play, where it's possible to either replicate the segments from a contributor or news agency to a customer in almost real time, or after the event, it's possible to replicate content in parallel. So go in and view and select the content you need and just replicate those segments. And this demonstration was also in collaboration with a number of news broadcasters and Elliott Media, who represented the UK Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, because we wanted to make sure that the demonstration was as representative of what would be useful to real news broadcasters as possible. And while this is demonstrating it in the news context, the same principle can be applied in the sport domain for host broadcasters and rights holders. So this demonstration has three main parts. On the left, there's the UK Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit TAMS store, which has been provisioned by Elliott Media, and they'll be ingesting as live sources for the House of Commons and House of Lords using TechX into their TAMS store. All the content in their store as a news contributor will also be replicated live into the Reuters TAMS store. So every segment, as soon as it's registered in the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, TAMS will then be replicated in almost real time into the Reuters TAMS store, where it'll be available to all their customers. Reuters will also be ingesting a number of different feeds, so they've got their own live sources and file-based content, which they'll ingest to their store. That will be visible using a Sobe MAM system with an integration into TAMS, so the Reuters users can use their MAM as normal, but all the content will be stored within the TAMS environment. They have an integration with InSync standards conversion, so they are taking segments out of the store as they're written and doing motion compensated frame rate standards conversion, just one segment behind because they need the segment either side to be able to do the motion compensation there. So you end up in the TAMS store with two different flows, the original source one and a second flow which has been frame rate standards converted there. Reuters are also providing an implementation of the TAMS Tools UI with the Omakase player to allow customers to come in and select sections of content to be replicated into their store. And then the third section on the right is the AWS TAMS store running in Ireland, and that can receive content from Reuters either through the live replication or on demand, either whole content or clips. That can then be used within other parts of the AWS TAMS environment. So that could be social media clipping, craft editing, playback into galleries, export through MediaConvert, any of the other TAMS tools and TAMS integrations that are available. So ultimately what you're seeing here is the contribution of content into news agency Reuters and onto AWS. And in this case, it's crossing 3 different companies, 3 different AWS accounts, and 3 different AWS regions with London, Paris, and Dublin here. So for this demonstration, we have 2 TAMS stores available to us. our AWS store here. You can see our logo in the top corner, and we have the Reuters store with its logo in the top corner. In the Reuters store, I can go and see all the different content that they're ingesting into the system, and I can open any of these up and see the content, see how it's been ingested into the system. I can see the different structures that are involved in it. In this case, we've got video, audio, and a set of thumbnails available for the content. And I can come back and I can view this within the Omikaze player. And I can see the content that's available here. It's quite short, it's only about a minute of duration, but I can come and I can play that content.
I didn't know where Brazil.
And then see the content and what's going on. In this case, it looks like it's an interview here. If I come back up, then I could go in and I can replicate this content quite easily into the store. So in this case, I'm going to grab the ID of the content in the Reuters store. I will come across into our AWS store here, and I can then trigger the replication to bring that content into our store. And we have a couple of modes of replication available to us. We have a live replication for content that's being ingested live into the Reuters TAMS store. That will set up the event notifications so that as new segments are ingested for that content into the Reuters store, the AWS store will be notified, and it will then pull the segments as they're available in effectively almost real time into the AWS TAMS store, and that will then be available for other posts in there. In testing, we're seeing sub-a-second replication of segments, which means that when you're looking in a web browser, in an HLS player or something like that, then actually the source is almost indistinguishable from live, and the buffer in the player is actually now more important than the replication time. In this case, I'm just going to do a one-off batch replication. I can select my store and then put the ID that I copied in and set that off. And this will go query the Reuters store, read the TAMS sources and flows, and then recreate them with the same identities in our AWS store here. So you can see it coming in at the moment. That's now got all of the metadata exactly as it was in the Reuters store. So this content is indistinguishable in terms of all the IDs and everything else that you're seeing at it. If I come down, then we should see the segments have also replicated in. And again, they've got the same timing and identity as they were in the Reuters store. So other than the S3 URL paths being different to a user with the TAMS API, this is indistinguishably the same as it was in Reuters. And again, I can come in and I can view the Omikaze player, and this is the same content that we saw in Reuters pre the replication. Now, that's fine if I want the whole content. What happens if I only want part of the content? Well, again, in the Reuters store, I can go and find some content here that is in the store. And I can then go and do the same thing in terms of viewing the Omikaze player. This one's a little bit longer. It's 5 minutes in length. But actually, I only want a section from further on here. Let's go for, looks like there's person standing at a lectern here. I was hoping we might have got a wider shot as well. There we go. There is another shot here. So I'm going to go and grab that section of content using the Omikaze clipping capabilities. If I go to export, and in this case I go to Reuters replication and click export, this will trigger very much the same process. The difference being that I'm doing it through the Reuters store UI. That will fire an event to the AWS store to tell it that this content is needed, and that will trigger the replication. So if I come back over here into our AWS store, we can see the same items appeared. And again, it's got all the same structures that were present in the Reuters store. But in this case, if I go and view the player, I should only see that 1 minute clip with its thumbnails that I wanted. And we should see, again, the segment there with the person at the lectern and the wider shot there. So, as I said earlier, we think this is a real game changer in this kind of space for contribution workflows in both news and sport. And we're very grateful to Reuters and all the partners who've been involved in building this demonstration out. If you're looking for more information on TAMS, then please go to Time-Addressable and you can find all the links to the various different GitHub repos, our implementation guide, and information about the TAMS community.